Hello children. Today let us learn the lesson Expert Detectives from the text Honeycomb. This lesson is about two children named Nishad and Maya who were very curious about a man named Mr. Nath. They tried their best to investigate in order to gather more information about Mr. Nath. Nishad is a boy of 7 years of age and his pet name is VII. His sister is Maya, who is 10 years old. Their mother is a doctor and she had a patient named Mr. Nath. His face was badly scarred and he lived alone in a room. The children were very anxious to know about him, and they wondered if he was a crook on the run, which means a criminal or a convict who is hiding from the police. One day the children's marble rolled into Mr. Nath's room, and Nishad got a chance to see him. He described him to his sister. This made the children all the more curious about Mr. Nath. As the children walked towards the clinic, they exchanged their views about Mr. Nath. Nishad did not feel that Mr. Nath looked like a monster. He describes him as being thin and poor, and so he could not afford to eat well. Maya, on the other hand, had a different opinion about Mr. Nath. She believed that he was a crook who had ₹1,000,000 hidden somewhere in his room. But Nishad did not believe that Mr. Nath was a criminal. Maya, however, sticks on to her views and tells Nishad that Mr. Nath did not starve because they got to know from Mr. Mehta that a person named Ramesh gave meals to Mr. Nath every day. Now, once again, the children did not agree with each other's thoughts about Mr. Nath. When Nishad said that Mr. Nath does not work anywhere and so he could possibly have no money to pay for his food, Maya exclaimed that he possibly had a lot of money hidden somewhere which helped him to live even without working. The children then discussed about the scars on the face of Mr. Nath. Maya believed that he must have got them during a shootout with the police. But Nishad disagreed, as their mother had told them that those were burn scars. One day, Nishad went with his mother to the clinic. Nishad was upset about Mr. Nath's sickly appearance. He knocked at Mr. Nath's door, and when Mr. Nath opened the door, he thrust a bar of chocolate into his hand. Unfortunately, Mr. Nath did not ask the boy to get in, and so Nishad did not get a chance to know more about Mr. Nath. However, Nishad met Ramesh, who brought meals for Mr. Nath. He found that Ramesh took 2 meals for Mr. Nath every morning and evening. 1 cup of tea in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. Ramesh also told Nishad that Mr. Nath always ate the same food. He paid in cash and he tipped well. Nishad also got to know that almost every Sunday Mr. Nath had a visitor. The person was tall, fair, stout and wore spectacles. He was a talkative person too. Maya was pleased with this information. She told Nishad that they would now sort out the facts like expert detectives so that they could trap Mr. Nath. Nishad didn't like Maya being so sure about Mr. Nath being a crook. To him, Mr. Nath appeared to be an ordinary man, but Maya believed that many criminals can look quite ordinary. Maya started to write by first giving her article the title Catching a Crook. After half an hour, she asked Nishad if he wanted to hear what she had written. She read out the 9 facts one by one. These were the simple facts that both of them had gathered about Mr. Nath. It included his name and his habits. Nishad did not pay much attention to what Maya read out. He had a soft corner for Mr. Nath and said that he must be lonely without friends, and he was happy that Mr. Nath had at least one friend who met him on Sundays. Maya concluded that the Sunday visitor must be Mr. Nath's helper in crime. Nishad refused to agree with Maya on Mr. Nath. He was very annoyed at Maya's insisting on calling Mr. Nath a criminal. He threatened not to discuss the matter any further unless she changed her attitude. He added that Mr. Nath couldn't be a bad man because he tipped Ramesh so generously. Maya replied that Ramesh perhaps knew some secrets of Mr. Nath, and so he was given tips as bribe. Now Nishad was fed up. The lesson ends with both the children not agreeing to each other's views about Mr. Nath. Thank you for watching this video. Like, share, subscribe and comment for suggestions.